Hello and welcome to another Army Roundup podcast. This is Smorganite speaking, and this week I'm going to be taking you through the Necron force that I have put together. Now, there aren't many, so this might be a shorter podcast this week, but this army is something that I put together a few years ago, actually, due to the sort of interest in having a Necron army for Zone Mortalis. So the army started as a 30 power level project where I would build up an army for Zone Mortalis games where we would play 30 power level, no more, no less, and you sort of take whatever you need or want in a Zone Mortalis game. Obviously it had to fit and sort of be able to move down corridors and go through the doors, so it was sort of on you what you took for that 30 power level. But what I actually started with was Praetorians and Trazyn the Infinite. Now that was my sort of 30 power level list because I was very much a fan of the Gathering Storm books, and having Trazyn the Infinite sort of in those books and in the story arc actually made it a lot more interesting to me to have this model on the tabletop. From there I then decided, do you know what, this army would actually be quite nice to be able to be expanded upon. So I think I actually ended up getting the Obelisk and Transcendent Catan, or the Tesseract Vault, I think it's called when it's got the Catan inside. So I actually got one of the Tesseract Vault so that I could have this cool, awesome Catan. I already had the Nightbringer and the Deceiver, but the other Catan, the Transcendent, was the one that I didn't have. So yeah, I got that one to start my collection sort of growing into the bigger things. Now, I did already have a Doom Scythe for the army, something that I'd not actually painted up but wanted to sort of get painted up, so I had sort of a flyer as well. I also had sort of like the Triarch Stalker from an old start collecting. I had a couple of the Doomsday Arcs, so the big cannon battle barge thing, and I had some Wraiths already as well, so the army started growing quite naturally and quite a nice sort of size. It was a lot of fun to sort of get some of it painted up, and I chose a paint scheme that was something a bit different from the standard paint scheme at the time, sort of different from the Leadbelcher. I had looked into all these different dynasties that you can do, but I actually chose on the Nylak dynasty. That was the one that I wanted to go with like the sort of teal and blue green colours, just purely because it was something a bit different, and I'd not actually painted an army in these colours before. So I started out with, as I say, getting as much done as I could of this, but then I decided sort of later on that actually I wanted to paint them in chrome. I wanted them to be as bright and as silver as I could, so I actually went to Halford's, the car shop here in the UK, and bought some chrome primer spray and used that as my base coat. And while it was great to have this chrome army, it meant that I was actually adding a couple of extra layers on because the paint was slipping and it wasn't actually sticking, much like sort of a Forge World model when you don't clean it correctly, how the paint sort of slides and slips and pools and then sort of has gaps, and yeah, it was a nightmare to get them painted up the way that I wanted. So I actually stopped halfway through. I've got lots of sort of spiders and immortals and death marks and things like that, and the tomb blades all still on sprues or still sort of just built and not painted because of sort of dreading how to paint with this chrome colour scheme. So I got the Necron Cryptek when the Forgebane box came out. I managed to get one of those so that I could paint that up as well, with the sort of spider looking thing underneath him, but I think the main focus was getting sort of the older Necron Lords, the Overlords, and converting up sort of different ones to make, cooler models. Now, I know that this 9th edition, Necrons were sort of the feature, the anti-hero feature army. They were in the starter set, but I actually never got any of the new stuff. It doesn't sort of appeal to me, really. I'm not a fan of sort of these tripedal looking crawlers. I think Games Workshop, in my opinion, they missed a trick with having them as tripedal instead of sort of having 4 legs. I thought 4 legs would have made them look a lot better for the aesthetic. Well, hey, it's my opinion. I'm not saying this is what it should be. I'm just saying for me it didn't gel, so I didn't buy any. The Catan Shard of the Void Dragon was definitely a model that I considered getting, and I think if the time was right and I actually started my Necrons again, I would definitely... Well, actually, I don't even need to start Necrons. The Catan Shard of the Void Dragon is a model that is beautiful enough that I would love to paint it. It would be an absolute joy to paint. I saw Darren Latham's... I think he actually sculpted it as well. I saw his Void Dragon Shard model, and absolutely brilliant. So I would enjoy painting it, I think, nonetheless, whether or not I did Necrons or not. I think if I were to sort of get them all out again and start again with them, I would try and do sort of a darker colour scheme, more of a grimdark colour scheme. I'm a little bit, not fed up, but I'm a little bit sort of more interested in doing grimdark styles for 40k with sort of the systems not representing sort of a grimdark style anymore, in my opinion. I sort of think everything's a bit too clean and a bit too sort of, the Ultramarines that are the poster boys, they're all no battle damage, sort of factory fresh models, and that's fine, that's cool, but at the same time I'm sort of, for my hobby, I'm more interested in a grimdark style, so battle damage and weathered, and as though they've been fighting a long war, which obviously in the lore everybody has. So yeah, the Necrons are a smaller passion project of mine. Croydon bought me a couple of the Annihilation Barge sets that came out from Games Workshop one Christmas, which was nice, but as I say, I never actually got those models finished painted or anything, so maybe one day we'll get a chance to build them up and play with those. But we do have, as I mentioned in a previous video, or in a previous podcast, sorry, we do have the fan-made rules for Necrons for Heresy, so there are still abilities to use those in-game. I don't know the rules off the top of my head, but I'm hoping Gauze hasn't changed, because that was the army that I knew could defeat the Warlord with ease, sort of having Gauze weapons, and every actual Necron warrior can wound the Warlord was absolutely terrifying. So yeah, I would definitely give it a check out, and if I think it's something that I would like to do, maybe the Necrons might get down from the loft in the studio and actually painted sooner rather than later. So yeah, we'll have to see what the future holds for these guys, but I think that's pretty much everything that I'd want to say on the army at the moment. Yes, I have a lot of Necrons. No, they're not painted because I decided to paint them a very tough colour scheme. Yes, hopefully they'll get painted one day and played with one day, but for now they are just up in the loft in a box waiting for me to actually brave the Necron horde that I've got to paint. So yeah, so I think that's everything. Thank you very much for listening, and take care.